Welcome back to Cold Climate College Football, where we don't debate rumors, we call inevitability. And today, college football hits the point of no return. In the last video, we didn't chase chaos. We asked the only question that actually matters. If the Big Ten expands to 20 teams, which 2 teams make sense, not emotionally, not politically, but structurally for the next 30 years. And once the noise was stripped away, the answers were unavoidable. Notre Dame fighting Irish Pittsburgh Panthers. That wasn't hype, that was the foundation. If you haven't seen that video yet, click the card in the upper right-hand corner right now and watch it, because this is what happens after the foundation is set. Up to this point, everything the Big Ten did was logical. Notre Dame and Pitt weren't aggressive moves. They were necessary ones. They locked down the Midwest. They stabilized the Northeast. They completed the Big Ten's original footprint. But once that foundation is set, the conversation changes. Because now the Big Ten isn't defending territory anymore. It's choosing targets. And this is the moment expansion stops being regional and starts becoming national. Not by chasing the entire South, by taking the right for programs. The ones that bring championships, markets, power, and leverage. This is where the Big Ten goes from reacting to reshaping the sport. Let's start with Clemson. On the field, this one doesn't need much explanation. Clemson has over 800 all-time wins, 3 national championships, including 2 in the playoff era, and more than 20 ACC titles. This is one of the most successful programs of the last decade. But what makes Clemson interesting to the Big Ten isn't just football. Academically, Clemson is an R1 research university, pushing around $300 million a year in research spending. And this matters. Clemson is actively pursuing AAU membership, which is something the Big Ten openly values. This isn't a school stuck in the past. It's a modern public research university that already fits the Big Ten's direction. Georgia Tech might be the most obvious academic fit in this entire expansion. On the football side, you're talking about a program with over 750 wins and for national championships. But Georgia Tech's real value is institutional. This is an AAU member, an R1 university, and one of the top engineering schools in the country. They spend over $1 billion a year on research, with deep ties to the federal government and private industry. Add in Atlanta as a media market, and Georgia Tech becomes the stabilizing force that makes this southern expansion bulletproof. Florida State brings something different. On the field, they've got nearly 600 wins, 3 national championships, 15 ACC titles, and 3 Heisman winners. This is a heavyweight program. Academically, Florida State is also an R1 research university, doing roughly $400 million a year in research. And like Clemson, Florida State is actively positioning itself for AAU membership, something the Big Ten absolutely cares about. This isn't a reach school. It's a flagship-level institution with momentum. Miami is different, and that's the point. On the field, this is a program with 5 national championships, 2 Heisman winners, and one of the most iconic brands in the sport. But academically, Miami checks a huge box for the Big Ten. This is an AAU member and a private R1 research university. They spend about $450 million a year on research, especially in medicine, climate science, and marine research. Miami adds academic credibility, private university diversity, and South Florida reach, all at the same time. Quick pause right here. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. That's how I know to keep making more videos like this for Cold Climate College Football. Now let's talk about the part that makes or breaks any expansion, the money, and more importantly, how it's distributed. A lot of people assume that if the Big Ten adds 6 schools, everyone's payout automatically goes down. That's only true if everyone gets a full share on day one, and that's not how real expansion works. Outside of Notre Dame, these schools would almost certainly enter the conference at reduced revenue shares. That's not punishment, that's precedent. The Big Ten has done this before. The SEC has done this before. Every smart conference does this. So what does that actually look like? You bring in Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Pitt at a partial share, maybe 50 or 60%, and you let that ramp up over time. But $80 to $100 million per year for full share members, expansion doesn't lower the ceiling. It raises it, as long as you don't rush the payouts. Now let's talk about the structure, because expansion only works if the league actually functions week to week. This isn't random alignment. This is a pod system designed to solve three problems at once. Travel, rivalries, and television inventory. 6 pods. 4 teams per pod. Every school plays its pod rivals every year. That's your foundation. From there, the conference rotates cross-pod matchups so everyone still sees each other regularly. What this does is preserve tradition and create flexibility. You keep your rivalries. You reduce unnecessary travel. And you guarantee high-value games every single season. Let's walk through it. The Pacific Pod is simple. These 4 schools are already traveling cross-country, so you keep them together. West Coast games stay West Coast. That means fewer coast-to-coast flights, cleaner scheduling, and consistent late-window TV inventory. This is classic Big Ten football, cold weather. Physical games, historic rivalries. Nothing gets diluted here. This pod preserves the heart of the conference. The central pod keeps geography tight and rivalries intact. These schools already recruit and compete in the same footprint. This pod minimizes travel and maximizes familiarity. This is the crown jewel pod. Notre Dame, Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State together immediately anchor the league's identity. Every one of these matchups is nationally relevant. This pod alone can carry an entire television slate in November. This pod locks down the Northeast. Penn State stays regional. Pitt finally gets a natural home. Maryland and Rutgers keep their East Coast relevance. This pod makes the Big Ten unavoidable in the Northeast corridor. And this is where the expansion really pays off. The Southeast pod gives the Big Ten a permanent, stable presence in the South without turning the conference into the SEC. And it immediately creates the built-in rivalry engines. Miami versus Florida State every year. Georgia Tech versus Clemson every year. Those games don't need marketing. They sell themselves. This pod system isn't about chaos, it's about control. It keeps the Big Ten geographically logical, culturally intact, and economically dominant. Expansion only works if the league feels intentional. This pod system makes it feel inevitable. Now here's the part that will inevitably happen. If the Big Ten takes Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Pitt, the ACC doesn't take a hit. The ACC becomes a shell, and the scariest part, the math is getting easier over time. The ACC settlement details that have been reported publicly include an exit fee schedule that starts high and drops towards $75 million later, and crucially, departing schools can retain their media rights after paying the exit fee. So if you're the SEC and you see the Big Ten clearing the board, you don't sit still. That's where the counterpunch enters. North Carolina and Virginia to the SEC, flagship brands. Better geography for the SEC footprint, and once that happens, this isn't power for anymore. This is the final sorting. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, but honest. Because once the Big Ten and the SEC finish consolidating the top of the ACC, they don't stop. The next phase isn't conferences fighting each other. It's the 2 dominant conferences selectively absorbing the strongest remaining brands. And that means the Big 12 isn't immune. Neither is what's left of the ACC. At some point, the Big Ten and the SEC look at the landscape and ask a simple question. Which schools still move ratings, brands, and postseason value, and which ones don't? The schools that answer that question the right way, they get invited. The ones that don't, they're left behind. We've already seen what that looks like. When the Pac-12 collapsed, Washington State and Oregon State didn't fail on the field. They just got stranded when the music stopped. That's the warning. Because in the final phase of realignment, this stops being about geography and starts being about survivability. The Big Ten and the SEC don't need to take every school. They only need the top layer. Once that happens, the remaining ACC and Big 12 schools aren't power conference programs anymore. Even if they used to be, they become something else. Regional, developmental, and economically disconnected from the top of the sport. This isn't speculation. It's the pattern. And we're already past the midpoint. So yeah, if this scares you, it's already happening. And if it excites you, welcome to the future, because realignment isn't about tradition anymore. It's about leverage. And the Big Ten just showed the blueprint. Now I want to hear from you. Who's the next domino? And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment so I can keep bringing you more cold climate college football. I'll see you in the next one.